Hello there, and welcome to Corey Loses for our March patron Q&A, as well as some channel updates. We're going to answer the questions you see on screen here, submitted by the patrons, and also talk a little bit about some changes to the channel, or at least to scheduling, that have happened in the last couple of weeks or are going to be happening the next couple of weeks. So the primary thing there is a bit of a change to how we're posting the Empire at War episodes. I've talked for a while about thinking about doing basically two series at a time, where one is recorded episodes, which we record on Twitch, and the other being streamed here on YouTube on Sundays, and sometimes additional episodes. So for the remainder of the two series that we're doing right now, the New Republic and the Empire of the Hand, we are going to be moving the New Republic to the stream slot. So that's going to be happening actually this Wednesday and this Sunday, which will probably be the end of that playthrough. And then we're going to be starting a CIS playthrough with a lot of the new stuff that's coming in Fall of the Republic, since we haven't done a CIS playthrough or even a Fall of the Republic playthrough in a while. The playthroughs we've had going on have gone for quite a long time. Like, we just finished the Republic one that was going on for a while. This Empire of the Hand one has been going on since September, and the New Republic one has been going on since like December or January at the very latest. I don't remember exactly when, but it was all like pre 3.0. So there's a lot that's changed, and it has been quite some time since we've started a new series, which, especially at a time when Star Wars YouTube is a little bit slower, it's been probably not fantastic for the channel. I have been thinking a lot. Part of why I want to move them to those days is because I kind of want to have um, a bit more in the side, or on the side of scripted videos on the channel. Uh, so talking about certain topics, whether it's talking about Star Wars video games, or maybe some modding topics, whether that's tutorials, or covering some things like advice for starting to mod or other game industry stuff. Not as like a super regular thing, but try to throw in, ideally working up to getting one of those per week. It probably wouldn't be anywhere near that at the start, because I'm still working on figuring out my workflow for how I'm going to be able to handle everything for the channel here, as well as Twitch, which I've tried to incorporate more. And I think that's gone really well for the last few weeks, or last few months, even at this point. Time means nothing anymore. But also, the mod datapad loses Twitch. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of take into consideration there. Uh, I do want to start getting a few more of the mod news videos out. There's gonna be there haven't been that many since 3.1 started, and usually people seem to be pretty interested in even some of the smaller topics for that. Like, there'll be a few things that I'll think like, oh, that's not big enough to be worth covering on its own. But even X2 has done a few videos on like individual ships or groups of ships, and they've done pretty well for them. So it seems like people are interested in that kind of thing. So even for some smaller features, I'd probably be able to work those in as some of the kind of the like scripted content kind of thing, and maybe even covering some other mods a bit more. Some of those I'd like to work into some of the stream series. We are also doing a bunch of other Star Wars game playthroughs that I'm trying to do on like Wednesday night streams. This week it's going to be the New Republic playthrough. We just finished Republic Commando, but I just wanted to kind of get that extra New Republic stream in. So next week we're going to see which game we end up playing. I'm not sure which it should be, so if there's any thoughts you guys have on what that should be, whether it should be maybe a Galactic Battlegrounds campaign, Jedi Knight. I'm even thinking of doing like a Fallen Order playthrough relatively soon, because I kind of missed that game. But yeah, so a bunch of options there. Let me know in the comments for that. I'll probably take a few of the options that seem most popular and put it up to a patron poll. But speaking of patrons, these questions are submitted by the patrons. There will be a link in the description to the page, and then there will be the new posts going up. We are going to be doing the ship selection for the CIS soon, so there will be more patron perks available. I also want to do another patron game day, hopefully with fewer technical difficulties. And so in April, I want to do a patron game day and a full community game day. The patron game days usually do, by the end, turn into like full open game nights, depending on how much time there is and how smoothly the games go. But yeah, so I do want to do more of the community matches get more of those going, because I always enjoy those. People always enjoy those, or it seems like I'm always afraid of doing them because they always seem like they're just going to be crash fests beforehand because it's Empire War. There's a question about that from Stone. You know what? Let's jump straight into Stone's question there, because Stone asks, is it possible for Petroglyph to increase multiplayer stability since they have access to the source code, or is it just a Frankenstein mess due to it originally being built with GameSpy in mind? So I can say that this is something that Petroglyph was actually really hoping to do something about with the patch that came out in January. Unfortunately, it's a bigger issue than you might think. Like some of the desyncs, some of the crashes are caused by specific things the game doesn't like doing in multiplayer. Like depending on like Lewis stuff, there can be some desyncs from that. There can be some like ability usage that the game just doesn't like in multiplayer that works fine in single player. So there's a few aspects of that you can eliminate or you can reduce by just trying to optimize in certain ways, cut certain things from skirmish. Uh, and like the more system resources you're using, the more likely you are to have a desync. But you can often go pretty far into a game depending on the people's individual computers, the connections. The biggest thing is that once you've lost the connection, there's no way to reestablish it anymore. Where like back in the GameSpy times, it would allow it to happen, which I don't know that they're actually going to be able to do anything about. Unfortunately, a lot of the testing that they tried to do with us for this patch didn't really return any useful information because we ended up having to generally test like playing with ourselves. Uh, and like everyone involved had a pretty reasonable computer, pretty reasonable connections. So that was unfortunately something that they wanted to do that they didn't really get much out of. Uh, and I don't know how reasonable it is to expect any new patches coming up after this one. Certainly not anytime soon, because like there was a whole thing because the previous, and I think I spoke about this in some of the previous Q&As, but the announcement of the patch came at a similar time as the announcement that EA was no longer the exclusive rights holder for Star Wars video games. So a lot of people kind of jumped the gun on that and started thinking like, oh, this means that we're getting a new Empire War. But it's just like Petroglyph has always done these patches when they're between other projects. So the previous set of patches we got in like 2017 and 2018 were between other major game contracts they had, or they had some time, I think, between the CNC remasters and something else this time, I think it was. But as far as I know, they're not going to have any time in the near future for Empire War patches. They'd certainly like to. It seems like they always want to do more with it, and they're still open to taking feedback from us. So I don't think they'd do that if they were like closing the door on it entirely. But it's not something that I would like plan to be an annual thing, or even or like I wouldn't plan my life around hoping for specific things to change. I wouldn't plan my mod around that. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question, Stone. Thank you for the question. Next, we'll move to the top of the list there with Tritones, who says, how are you? Also, what's been the funniest bug you've encountered while modding? So I'm doing good. Dana and I have discovered some new recipes recently. We made donuts for the first time this weekend, which was just fantastic. We made sour cream glazed donuts. I was afraid they were going to turn out like to be a absolute garbage. Maybe I'll try to put a picture in, but they were so good, and we definitely can't make them too often because just eat them every day if we can. But the funniest bug that I've encountered while modding actually happened. There are a few really weird bugs, but the thing that stands out is the funniest bug testing, at least, came in Ascendancy, which is our mod for Sins of Solar Empire. We were adding a random event where the CRuby could invade. And what the CRuby can do is they can so Sins of a Solar Empire works on these things called buff chains, where there are certain actions that you can tie to an ability or to an object, and then those perform certain other actions. And that's kind of how a lot of the modding in Sins is done. So like kind of these chains of actions that occur. So for the CRuby, they would take over. They would spawn at a planet, destroy the militia forces or player forces there, and then if they were able to do that, they would colonize the planet, and that colonizability also had a buff that would spawn more CRuby. So it was kind of like a crisis event where the CRuby invade and start taking over the galaxy. And this was very overtuned at first. So They're just. I was playing a test game with, I believe it was TL Miller. I think Mr. Puerto Rican was there, Kalo, and I forget who else. But there was. No, I think it was just the four of us then, and I think it was Mr. Puerto Rican. I might be wrong on that one, but there was uh just CRuby everywhere. What started, it was supposed to be a PvP game that we were testing with some of the new Empire of the Hand stuff, in particular, but also to see how the CRuby would work. And so there were just swarms of CRuby, and it turned into like an accidental survival mode. But it was like canceled out by another bug because the Empire of the Hand had just gotten the Peltist. And the Peltist has that main cannon, which we had just as a standard weapon. And they could one shot certain frigates. But the idea is like it's one projectile, it's killing it. And it has long recharge time. But one of the upgrades in Sins is that you upgrade the number of targets per bank on your capital ships, which means that for a weapon like the Pelta's main cannon, it could then fire uh, two main shots. If you upgrade again, because I think we had two or three tiers of the upgrade, uh, it would fire four. So we ended up having these like shotgun peltists that were just annihilating these swarms of dinosaur eggs, and it was messy. That probably is my favorite, weirdest, funny bug. If you can even describe it, it was more just like edge cases of the mechanics being there rather than a bug. But that's still one of my favorite memories of testing either of the mod or any of the mods. Uh, Thank you, Tritone. Our next question comes from General Winter, who asks, do you have any fan or any favorite fan theories, or alternatively, do you have any personal headcanon of events you think happen in the Star Wars universe, unsupported by the text, so Akbar Twitter is out? Listen to my podcast if you don't understand that reference, because we talk about Akbar and Winter a lot. Way too much. I think Justin's obsessed. But the thing that I think is like, well, kind of part of my personal headcanon is something with Thrawn, actually. Shocking, I know. Uh, where there's some throwaway mentions by, I think it's Mara in the NJO, where they're thinking about how they've killed the Thrawn clone in Vision of the Future, and Mara starts wondering if there's actually more Thrawns out there. So we kind of know from the one under Nero and also Groden Tierce that Thrawn did do a fair amount of cloning of himself. So I think it's probably within the realm of possibility that there is a Thrawn clone out there somewhere doing something. And that was actually something that Timothy Zahn had talked about wanting to write. Was like a book about Ben Solo, or not Ben Solo, Ben Skywalker uh, and Thrawn, the Thrawn clone teaming up to fight something. But that was something he kind of speculated about for a long time before Legends stopped. So I don't think we were ever really likely to get that book, but that was something that he had on his mind at least. So I think that's my choice there. So thank you, Winter. Our next question comes from Charles Outlaw, who asked, will the beautiful Bakuran ships shown in the datapad video, this was a video I did recently on my lore channel, about the Bakuran hymn system. So basically a system that allowed Bakuran ships to kind of just hyperspace skip through an interdiction field. Uh, so, will they be coming to a Thrawn's Revenge release in the near future? If so, do you expect them to be an influence reward build option or acquired some other way? Any thoughts on how their unique tech could be incorporated into the mod? So, the Bakuran ships, the Namana and the Bakur class, will be both in the next release of Thrawn's Revenge. They will be influence units. I think you can actually see the New Republic using them in my Empire of the Hand playthrough, because that was built on a more recent version than our New Republic playthrough. So I'm not able to build them for myself there, but you will be able to do that in 3.1. Currently, the way we have their tech represented is actually being able to ignore interdiction for single unit retreat. The It's kind of weird because the way the tech actually works isn't something that we can directly represent in Empire at War, because it's actually about being able to jump into a place that it's able to do rather than jumping out, uh, which is something that Empire at War doesn't really use interdictors for. So we kind of took the closest approximation of what it could mean in Empire at War for that. But thank you, Charles. Hopefully that answers your question. There will probably be another video more specifically about some of that stuff, kind of like I was talking about at the start of the video. Uh, our final question for today is from Hawkeye, who asks, what planet from outside the Star Wars galaxy do you wish you could add to the Conquest map? How's your family? How's the apartment? Since Triton beat me to the how are you? So I'm really only familiar with a couple planets, like Earth. So I'm pretty partial to Earth. I'd say Mars, but I already have like a copy of Terraforming Mars, so I don't think I need that in Star Wars necessarily. There used to be a mod called Project Mars, which was going to be a kind of Earth related thing. There's also uh, uh, what was it called? Dawn of Victory. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but the early days of Empire War actually had a lot of like non-Star Wars mod planned. So there was almost that almost whole mods built around that. But there's also some like Stargate stuff. Just have a Stargate planet in there, Atlantis. But yeah. As for my family, my sister's actually moving soon, and I won't be able to help them move, which is helping people move sucks. So yay. And especially like the last time I helped my sister move, I've moved a lot because I went like my sister stayed in our hometown for university, and I moved to Ottawa. So I've kind of moved a lot between school and back and forth and everything. And she hasn't moved that much. She moved like out of our parents' house into her last house, then she moved again. And when she moved the last time, it was like a scramble to kind of get everything ready the day before. So I was like, I think that's when I was living with my parents while my mom was sick. So I would like go and uh, help them move. Pretty much spent the 3 days in a row there because they were not ready. So I don't know how that's gonna go. I won't be around to see it, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that's good. And my house, I this is so much nicer than my last apartment where the cockroaches lived. So that alone makes this much better. I was really worried about like flooding because there was so much snow just piled outside. Uh, but yeah, so thank you for asking. Thank you for the questions, Hawkeye, Charles Stone, General Winter, and Tritone. This will be available. The April patron question page will be up within the next couple days, along with the CIS Choose Your Ships thing. Uh, For the next ones, I'm also going to try to answer YouTube comment questions, as like depending on how many there are from the patron. So it's basically patron questions are priority, and then YouTube comment questions. But this is approaching 20 minutes, so I think that is going to do it for this month. Thank you for all your support throughout the last month. Again, it's been a kind of a slower month uh, on YouTube for any Star Wars stuff. So I do appreciate you guys watching the content. Hope you've been enjoying it, even though we are well into the 30s on our two ongoing series. Hope you guys did enjoy my anger towards the middle of Republic Commando as well. But thanks again. See you next time. Bye, everyone. Leave those in the comments as well. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.